Jaeon Hale was not having a good Monday. He had spilled coffee on his white shirt at 8 in the morning, missed his bus, and arrived at university with wet socks. So when a guy he had never spoken to before walked straight up to his table in the library and sat down, without asking, Hale honestly considered just leaving. The guy was Kim Ryu. Everyone knew Kim Ryu. He was the kind of person who walked into a room and made other people nervous without trying. Not because he was mean, he was actually polite. But he had this face, like he was always thinking about something much more important than whatever was happening around him. Dark eyes, quiet voice, and today, for some reason, he was sitting across from Jaeon Hale like they were old friends. "I need your help," Ryu said. Hale looked up from his textbook. "Do I know you?" "No, but I know you. You're in my Tuesday sociology class. You sit near the window. You always finish the readings before everyone else, and you never raise your hand even when you know the answer." Hale stared at him. "That's slightly creepy." "I need a fake boyfriend," Ryu said, completely ignoring that. "Just for one event. My ex is coming back to town next Saturday. He's going to be at my cousin's birthday party, and I need him to see that I'm doing fine. Better than fine. I need him to see that I moved on." Hale put his pen down slowly. "And you came to me because you're convincing. I've seen you in class presentations. You're calm, you don't panic, and you don't seem like the type who would make this weird. I'm making it weird right now in my head." Ryu leaned forward slightly. "I'll pay you. 3,001 per hour. The party is 4 hours. That's 12,000. Plus dinner before the party." Hale thought about his empty wallet and the textbook he needed to buy for next semester. He thought about how simple this sounded. One party, 4 hours. Pretend to be someone's boyfriend, smile at an ex, go home. "What's your ex like?" Hale asked. Something moved across Ryu's face. It was fast, there and gone before Hale could name it properly, but it looked like old pain. "His name is Seo Beiko," Ryu said quietly. "We dated for 2 years. He left without much explanation. He texted me 3 days ago saying he was coming back and that he hoped I was well." Ryu's jaw tightened slightly. "I don't want him to see me alone." Hale studied him for a moment. Kim Ryu, up close, did not look as unbothered as he looked from a distance. He looked like someone who had been carrying something heavy for a long time and was very good at pretending the weight was nothing. "Okay," Hale said. Ryu blinked. "Just like that? You want conditions? Fine. No kissing, no meeting my family, no weirdness after. We do the party, we sell the story, and on Sunday we go back to being strangers who sit in the same sociology class." Ryu nodded. Agreed. They exchanged numbers. Ryu stood up to leave and then paused. "One more thing," he said. "His name is Beiko. Don't forget it. He'll probably test you." Hale frowned. "Test me? How?" "He's competitive. If he thinks there's a chance you're not real, he'll push. He'll ask questions, try to catch you off guard. You need to know basic things about me. Enough to sound like someone who actually pays attention. So I have to study you," Hale said flatly. "Think of it as preparation." Ryu almost smiled. "Almost. I'll send you a list." He left. Hale watched him walk out of the library, tall and quiet and carrying that invisible weight, and thought, this is such a strange thing to agree to. He looked down at his sociology textbook. Then he thought about 12,001 plus dinner. He opened his new contact. Kim Ryu. No last name in the display. No emoji, no context. Just a name. The list arrived 40 minutes later. It was a full page long. Favorite food, childhood neighborhood, the name of his dog who had died when he was 12, the reason he changed his major sophomore year, a brief note that said, "I prefer quiet places. I don't like being touched without warning, and I take my coffee without sugar." Hale read it twice, and for the first time that Monday, he forgot about the wet socks. The list Kim Ryu sent was organized. Bullet points, clean formatting. Hale read it sitting on his bed Wednesday night and thought, this man prepared a document about himself like it was a business proposal. Which, technically, it was. He highlighted the things he thought Beiko might ask about. The dog, a white Shih Tzu named Cloud who apparently Ryu still mentioned sometimes when he was tired. The major change, from business to literature, which happened after Ryu failed his second business midterm and realized he had been reading novels during every lecture. The coffee habit, the dislike of being touched without warning. That last one Hale circled twice. They met Thursday afternoon at a small cafe near campus. A practice session Ryu had suggested over text with the message, "We should run through this before Saturday. Please come prepared." Hale arrived first. He ordered water and waited. Ryu walked in at exactly the time he said he would. He was wearing a gray sweater and he scanned the room before he sat down, like someone who always checked exits first. "You read the list?" Ryu asked. "Twice." Hale folded his hands on the table. "Ask me anything." Ryu looked at him steadily. "Where did I grow up?" "Mapo district." "You moved to this city for university." "Favorite food?" "Teokbokki." "But not the very spicy kind, which you think makes you sound boring, but you said it anyway." Ryu's expression shifted slightly. "I didn't put that second part in the list." "No," Hale agreed. "But you said it in a note at the bottom. You wrote, and I'm quoting, 'I know this sounds plain, but I genuinely cannot handle spice.' I thought that was honest." Ryu was quiet for a second. "What's the most important thing to remember?" he asked. It was a different kind of question. Not a quiz. Something else. Hale thought about it properly. "That you don't like being touched without warning," he said. "If I reach for your hand or put my arm around you, I'll make it visible first. I won't just grab you." Something in Ryu's shoulders relaxed. It was subtle. Hale almost missed it. "Good," Ryu said. They ordered coffee, Ryu's without sugar, Hale's with too much of it, and went through the details of their fictional relationship. They had met in sociology class. Ryu had started talking to Hale after a class discussion about social performance, which Hale found genuinely funny given the situation. They had been dating for 6 weeks. Not long, but long enough to be real. "Why 6 weeks?" Hale asked. "Because if I say longer, Baiko will want more details. 6 weeks is recent enough that we're still in the early stage. Less history to invent." "Smart," Hale said. He meant it. Ryu looked at his coffee cup. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why did you say yes?" "Really, you don't know me." Hale thought about saying the textbook money. He thought about saying the 12,001. Both were true. But sitting across from Ryu in this quiet cafe, watching the way he held his cup with both hands like he needed something to hold, Hale said something different. "Because you looked like you actually needed it," he said simply. "Not just the fake boyfriend part. The 'I don't want him to see me alone' part. That part I understood." Ryu looked up. His eyes were very direct, the kind of eyes that didn't look away from things. "Did someone leave you too?" he asked. "No," Hale said, "but I've been lonely enough to know what it looks like on someone else." Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable. The kind of silence that happens when something honest gets said, and both people decide to just let it exist for a moment. Then Ryu said, "We should probably talk about the physical stuff." "Oh God," Hale said. "Not like that," Ryu said quickly, the closest thing to flustered Hale had seen from him. "I mean, how comfortable are you with hand-holding? Baiko will be watching. If we look stiff, he'll notice." They practiced. It was awkward for exactly 40 seconds. Ryu's hand was warm, which Hale had not expected, and Hale's grip was apparently too tight, which Ryu mentioned with a quiet, "You're not rescuing me from a cliff." Hale laughed. Actually laughed. Ryu looked surprised, then something softened in his face. Not quite a smile, but related to one. They walked back toward campus together after. The evening was cool. Their shoulders were close but not touching. "Saturday," Ryu said at the corner where their paths split. "I'll pick you up at 6. "I'll be ready," Hale said. He watched Ryu walk away. He thought about the list again. The dog named Cloud. The coffee without sugar. The dislike of being touched without warning, he thought. "I am learning a person," he thought. "That is a strange thing to do for a stranger," he thought. When did he stop being a stranger? The party was not what Hale expected. He had imagined something loud, music, people packed together, laughter so thick you had to shout. Instead, Ryu's cousin Min lived in a quiet apartment in the newer part of the city, and the birthday party was maybe 20 people in a nicely lit living room with jazz playing low in the background. It was the kind of party that felt more dangerous for a fake couple, queer, more personal. People could actually look at you. Ryu, knocked on Hyle's apartment door at exactly 6. He was wearing a navy shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbow, and his hair was slightly different, less perfectly flat, like he had tried to make it look easier than usual. Hale opened the door, and Ryu looked at him for exactly 2 seconds before he said, "You look good." "You sound surprised," Hale said. "I'm not." Ryu said it straight, no smile, and somehow that made it worse. Hale's ears felt warm. They took a cab. They did not talk much on the way, but it was not an empty silence. It was the silence of two people who were separately preparing for something. "He'll probably arrive late," Ryu said as they pulled up to the building. "That's something he does. Makes entrances." "Okay. If he speaks to you directly, be calm. You don't need to impress him." "I'm not trying to impress him," Hyle said. "I'm trying to convince him I like you." "Same thing," Ryu said quietly. They walked in together. Ryu's hand found Hale's just inside the door. He had given warning, a slight glance down before he reached, just like they'd practiced. And his grip was firm but not tight. Min was lovely. She hugged Ryu and then looked at Hale with bright, curious eyes. "So you're the sociology class guy," she said. "That's me," Hale said. "He texted me about you," she said to Hale, then looked at Ryu with a look that meant several things at once. Ryu moved them along smoothly. They met cousins, a friend from high school, a colleague of Min's who talked too long about real estate. Hale stayed close to Ryu, laughed at the right times, touched his arm once when making a point in conversation. Not scripted, it just happened. And Ryu did not flinch. And then the door opened. Seo Bako was exactly what Hyle would have predicted if he had predicted anything. Tall, confident, the kind of good-looking that knew it was good-looking. He scanned the room when he walked in, the way people do when they're looking for something specific. He found Ryu. He found Hale. His eyes moved between them once. Then he smiled and walked over. "Ryu," he said. His voice was warm in a way that felt deliberate. "You look well." "Baiko," Ryu said, calm, steady. His hand tightened once, briefly, around Hyle's. Not for show, Hyle thought. It was just a moment of needing something. Hyle squeezed back, lightly. "And this is?" Baiko looked at Hale with a very polite, very sharp expression. "Jaeon Hale," Hale said. "Hi. How long have you two been together?" 6 weeks, Hale said. Then, because Baiko's eyes were the testing kind, he added, "We met in class. He started talking to me after a discussion about social performance, which I still find very funny." Something crossed Baiko's face. Not defeat, more like recalibration. He stayed near them for most of the next hour. He asked questions, light ones, clever ones, questions designed to find gaps. What does Ryu do when he's stressed? What's his worst habit? Where does he like to go on weekends? Hale answered them all, correctly, naturally. At one point, Baiko asked, "Does he talk about Cloud?" Hale looked at Ryu for just a half second, not long enough to look like he was checking, and then back at Baiko. "Sometimes," Hale said. "When he's tired." Something in Baiko changed. A small deflation, quiet, like a door closing. Later, when Baiko had moved to the other side of the room, Ryu leaned close to Hale and said very softly, "You didn't have to mention Cloud." "I know," Hale said. "Thank you," Ryu said, still soft. Something in his voice that had not been there before. Hale looked at him. At this person he had known for less than a week, whose hand he was holding, whose dog's name he had memorized, whose coffee order he knew by heart. Something shifted quietly in his chest. He told himself it was the atmosphere, the warm lights, the jazz, the wine he'd had exactly 1 glass of. He did not look at Ryu again for the rest of the night, but he did not let go of his hand. Sunday morning, Hale woke up with the clear, logical thought, "It's over, it worked, done." He checked his phone. Ryu had transferred the money at midnight, neat and precise as everything else about him. There was also a text. "You were good last night, thank you, Ryu." Hale stared at it for longer than necessary. He typed back, "No problem. Good luck with everything." And then deleted it and typed, "Hope it helped." And then deleted that too and just sent, "Glad it worked." He put the phone face down. He should have felt lighter. The job was done. He had made 12,001 and had one decent free dinner and had successfully fake dated someone for a night without anything getting complicated. Except at 10 in the morning, Ryu texted again. Baiko messaged me this morning. He wants to meet for coffee. He said he needs closure. Hale sat up in bed. What are you going to do? He sent back. 3 minutes passed. I don't know. I think I need more time to think about it. I don't know if I'm over him. Hale read that sentence twice. Then he set the phone down and looked at the ceiling. There it was. The thing he should have known from the start. Ryu still had feelings for Baiko. The party had been a performance of moving on, not the actual thing. Of course, that was what fake boyfriends were for, to help with the pretending until the real feelings caught up. Hale's chest did something unpleasant. He told himself it was sympathy. By Monday, things had technically returned to normal. They were in sociology class. Hale sat near the window. Ryu sat 3 rows back. The professor talked about constructed identity, and Hale took notes and did not look at Ryu once. After class, Ryu caught him at the door. I told Baiko I'd meet him Wednesday, Ryu said. He looked tired, less composed than usual, like the weekend had cost him something. Okay, Hale said. I wanted to tell you because… Ryu paused. I don't know why. I just wanted to tell you. You don't need to update me, Hale said.
We had an agreement. It's done.
Ryu looked at him for a moment. Right, he said. Quiet. Hale walked out. He made it to the stairwell before he stopped, leaned against the wall and stared at nothing. When did this get complicated? He thought. He knew the exact answer, which was the problem. It was Cloud. The moment he had said Cloud, when he had seen Baiko's expression change and felt Ryu's brief grip tighten, that was when something had stopped being a job and started being something else. Something he did not have a clean word for yet. He straightened up, walked to his next class, took perfect notes. Wednesday came. Hale did not ask Ryu how the coffee went. Ryu did not text. Silence sat between them like a third person in the class. On Thursday morning, Ryu's name appeared on Hale's phone. He asked if you were real. Hale frowned. What did you say? I said yes. He said he could tell. Good. A pause. Then, he also said he wants to try again. Hale's stomach did something cold and immediate. What did you say? He sent. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, I said I needed time to think. Hale put the phone in his pocket. He was in the middle of the campus courtyard and the sun was out, and everything around him was ordinary and loud, and he felt none of it. He thought, this is not my problem. This was never my problem. I was hired, I was in agreement, I did the job. He thought, then why does this feel like something is being taken from me? He did not have an answer, not yet. 3 weeks passed and nothing happened, which was somehow worse than something happening. Ryu still sat 3 rows back in sociology. They did not text unless it was for class-related reasons. Once Hale sent a photo of his notes when Ryu missed a Tuesday because of a migraine, and Ryu sent back a thank you that was 2 sentences, long and formal, and felt like a door with a lock on it. Hale threw himself into studying. He finished his readings early. He raised his hand in class for the first time all semester, just to have something to do with the energy that had nowhere to go. On the last Thursday of the month, something unexpected happened. It rained. It rained so heavily, so suddenly that everyone caught outside. The main building was scrambling for cover, and Hale, who had forgotten his umbrella 3 days in a row, ended up pressed under the narrow overhang outside the library, with about 15 other people, damp and annoyed. Ryu appeared beside him 2 minutes later, equally damp. He had apparently also forgotten his umbrella. They stood together under the overhang, and neither of them said anything for almost a full minute. How have you been? Ryu said finally. Fine, Hale said. You? Fine. Rain hit the pavement in front of them. A girl nearby was on the phone complaining about the weather. Someone was eating chips from a bag, which Hale found both irritating and impressive. Did you decide? Hale asked. He had not planned to ask. It came out anyway. Ryu was quiet for a moment. About Baiko? Yes. I told him no, Ryu said. Hale's heart did something it should not have done. He kept his face still. Why? He asked, carefully. Because, Ryu stopped. He turned to look at Hyle directly, which was the thing Ryu did when he was going to say something real. At the party, when you said Cloud, I realized something. Baeko never remembered that. In 2 years, he asked me about Cloud exactly once, and only because he saw a photo. You read a list for one day, and you used it in the exact right moment. Hale said nothing. I kept thinking about that, Ryu continued, and then I thought about how you looked when I said I didn't know if I was over him. You looked. He stopped again. I looked what? Hyle asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. Like something hurt, Ryu said quietly, and I kept thinking about that more than I kept thinking about Baeko. The rain was still heavy. The overhang was small, and they were standing closer than they had since the party. Ryu's shoulder was almost touching Hale's. This was supposed to be simple, Hale said. He was not accusing. He was just stating a fact about a situation that had stopped being what it started as. I know, Ryu said. You paid me to be your fake boyfriend, I know. That's… Hale pressed his lips together. That's a strange starting point. Most things don't start at the right point, Ryu said. They just start somewhere. Hale looked at him. At the wet hair, and the quiet eyes, and the invisible weight that was maybe a little lighter today than it had been the first time they had talked in the library. I don't want your money, Hale said. Ryu looked at him carefully. You already took it. I mean, Hale exhaled. I mean, going forward. If there's a going forward, I don't want this to be. It's not, Ryu said. It isn't. Silence. The rain. The Chips girl nearby, who was completely unaware she was standing next to an extremely significant moment. Okay, Hyle said. Okay, Ryu agreed. They stood under the overhang until the rain slowed. Then they walked to the nearest coffee shop together, not holding hands, not saying much, but close enough that their arms kept brushing. Ryu ordered his coffee without sugar. Hale ordered his with too much of it. The person behind the counter looked at Hale's cup and said, Are you sure? That's a lot. I like sweet things, Hale said. He did not look at Ryu when he said it, but he heard Ryu set his cup down, and then, very quietly, heard him make a sound that was almost a laugh. Everything was going beautifully, and Hale should have known that meant something was about to go wrong. They had settled into something real and soft and new, not labeled yet. Ryu was cautious with labels, Hale was learning, the same way he was cautious with most things, but real in the small daily ways. Ryu texted him about lectures. Hale sent him photos of ugly pigeons he saw on the way to class because Ryu had once said he found pigeons strangely tragic, and it had made Hale laugh so hard he had to sit down. And now it was a thing between them. They studied together 3 times a week in the library. Ryu always read first. Hale always ordered the drinks. They sat on the same side of the table after the second week, which neither of them commented on. Min called Ryu one afternoon while they were studying and said something that made Ryu go very still. He ended the call. He put the phone down carefully. Biko is coming to Min's next gathering, Ryu said. Next weekend. She didn't know he'd make it weird. She said she's sorry. Hyle looked at him. Does it make it weird? Ryu's jaw moved. He texted me last night. He said he thinks I'm making a mistake. That what I have now is… His word was rebound. Rebound, Hyle repeated, yes. Ryu looked at the table. He said that the guy from the party, you, seemed like someone I picked up quickly to prove a point. He said it doesn't look real. Hale was quiet for a moment. Does it feel real? He asked. Ryu looked up at him, the direct look, the one that did not avoid things. Yes, Ryu said, simply and completely. Then that's the only thing that matters, Hyle said. But something had lodged in his chest. Not doubt about Ryu, not that. Something smaller and sharper. The awareness that Hale's starting point in this story was, objectively, the worst possible starting point. He had been hired. That was the fact of it. He had been chosen off a list of available warm bodies and offered money. That night, alone in his apartment, Hale sat with that thought for a long time. He thought about how Ryu had said, "You looked like something hurt." He thought about Cloud and the coffee and the way Ryu had relaxed when Hale promised to make contact visible before reaching for him. He thought, Baeko is wrong, but I understand why he'd say it. And then he thought, does Ryu ever wonder about it? About whether I would have agreed if there had been no money. He did not know. He had not asked. He picked up his phone and then put it back down 5 times before he finally typed. Can I ask you something? Ryu answered in 30 seconds. Yes. When you first came to my table in the library, if you hadn't had money to offer, would you still have asked me? A long pause, longer than usual. I don't know, Ryu answered. Probably not. I needed something concrete to offer. I didn't think you'd say yes otherwise. Why? I'm just thinking about origin points. Hyle typed. Does it bother you? Hyle stared at the ceiling. A little, he sent back. Honest, another long pause. Then, can I come over? Which was new. They had studied together in public spaces, had coffee, had walked around the campus neighborhood once on a Friday afternoon. Ryu had never asked to come over. Yes, Hyle typed. Ryu was there in 20 minutes. He came in and sat on the floor with his back against Hyle's bed. Hyle's apartment was small. There wasn't much furniture, and said, I came to you because I noticed you, not because you were convenient. I noticed you for weeks before I worked up a reason to talk to you. Hyle, sitting on his bed above him, looked down at the back of Ryu's head. The money was an excuse, Ryu said, not the reason. You could have just talked to me, Hale said. I know. A pause. I'm not good at. I don't do things without a reason. I needed a reason that made sense logically. The fake boyfriend thing made sense. Talking to you just because I wanted to. He stopped. Scared you? Hale guessed. Yes. Hale slid off the bed and sat on the floor beside him. Their shoulders touched. It scared me too, Hale admitted, when I realized I wasn't pretending anymore. They sat like that for a while, not talking, just present. Then Ryu said quietly, I'm sorry it started the way it did. Don't be, Hyle said. Most things don't start at the right point. He used Ryu's own words. He felt Ryu go still beside him and then slowly exhale. They just start somewhere, Ryu finished. And then carefully, visibly, in full view, Ryu reached over and took Hale's hand. Hale held it tight, not like someone rescuing anyone from a cliff. Like someone who had found something and decided, very quietly, not to let go. The gathering at Min's came. They went together. Baeko was there, just as Min had warned, standing near the kitchen with a drink in his hand and eyes that tracked Ryu's entrance from across the room. This time was different from the birthday party. There was no performance happening. There were no rules. Hyle and Ryu arrived as themselves. Two people who held hands without rehearsing it, who knew each other's coffee orders, who had sat on a small apartment floor and told the truth about being scared. And somehow that made Baeko more dangerous. Because Baeko was smart. He could see the difference. And Hale watched him register it. The moment he understood that whatever he had expected to see, this was not it. He waited until Ryu stepped away to help Min carry something from the kitchen. Then he walked to Hale. Can I talk to you? Baeko said. Hale looked at him. Sure. They stepped to a quieter corner. Baeko was not unfriendly. That was the thing. He had a calm, reasonable face. How did you two actually start? He asked. Sociology class, Hale said. I know the story, Baeko said. I meant the real version. Hale was quiet. He paid you, Baeko said. At the birthday party. I suspected it then, but I wasn't sure. A few days ago, I ran into a classmate of yours. They mentioned seeing you and Ryu in the library. First time you'd ever been seen together, the day before the party. Hyle kept his face still. I'm not going to make a scene, Baeko said.
I'm telling you this because I think you should know that I know.
And I think, his voice lost some of its smoothness. I think you should tell him that you're going to tell him. Hyle frowned. What? He doesn't know that I know, Baeko said. If you tell him first, before I do, it'll mean something different. If I tell him first, it'll look like you were hiding it. Hyle stared at him. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Baeko looked down at his drink. Something passed over his face. Something that was not strategy. Because I hurt him, he said quietly. And I don't want to do it again. Not even to make a point. He looked back up. Tell him tonight. He walked away. Hyle stood in the quiet corner alone. His heart was loud. He had not lied to Ryu. But he had also not volunteered the information that they had started as a business arrangement. Ryu knew that. But there had never been a conversation where Hale said clearly, "This is what I was when you first chose me." An answer to a practical problem. He found Ryu near the kitchen door. "I need to tell you something," Hale said. Ryu looked at him immediately. Something in his face became careful. "Okay." They found a quiet hallway. Hale told him about Beiko knowing, about the classmate, about the conversation in the corner. Ryu listened. His expression went through several things, none of them easy to read. When Hale finished, there was a silence. "I knew you were going to say something like that," Ryu said finally. Hale blinked. "You knew?" "Not the Beiko part. I've been waiting for the moment when the beginning would come back up and make everything complicated." Ryu pressed his back against the hallway wall. "I thought about it too, a lot. Whether what we are now is," he stopped. "Real?" Hale said. "Whether it would have happened if I had never offered money," Ryu said. "It would have," Hale said. "Eventually, I noticed you before you came to my table. He exhaled. "I also needed a reason to get close to someone I didn't know how to approach." Ryu looked at him. "You were going to approach me?" he said. "Someday, maybe. I'm not brave." Hale met his eyes. "You beat me to it, with a very strange method." Something in Ryu's face cracked open, not in a bad way. In the way things crack when the pressure inside them has been there too long. "I almost said no to this tonight," Ryu said. "Coming to this party, because I didn't want anything to break this." "It's not broken," Hale said. "No," Ryu agreed. They stood in the hallway for another minute. From inside the party, they could hear Min laughing at something. "I don't want Beiko to have this over us," Hale said. "He doesn't," Ryu said firmly. He reached over, visibly, carefully, and slid his fingers through Hale's. "Are you okay?" "Yes," Hale said. "Are you?" Ryu considered. "I will be." They went back inside. Hale kept Ryu's hand. Bako was across the room. He looked at them once. Then he looked away, and something in the set of his shoulders said, Okay then." Min, who had seen the whole evening from various angles, appeared beside Hale at the drinks table later. "You're good for him," she said quietly. Hale looked at Ryu across the room, talking to someone's elderly uncle with patient, genuine attention. "He's good for me too," Hale said. A month later, in the same library where everything had started, Ryu sat down across from Hale without asking. Hale looked up. "You do that every time," Hale said. "Old habit," Ryu said. He had coffee for both of them. Hale's with too much sugar. He put it down in front of Hale without ceremony, the way you do a thing when you have done it enough times that it becomes part of being somewhere. Hale wrapped his hands around the cup. It was exam season. The library was full. Outside the windows, it was the kind of late afternoon where the light went gold and everything looked briefly like a memory of itself. "Min is hosting something in December," Ryu said, opening his notes. "She asked if we were coming." "We?" Hale said. "You and I." She said, "You and your person." "Your person," Hale repeated. "Yes, she called me your person." "She did." Ryu did not look up from his notes, but Hale could see the edge of something on his face. "I didn't correct her." Hale smiled at his coffee. Then he looked up at the ceiling for a moment, composing himself, and then back down at his textbook. They studied for 2 hours. The library filled and thinned and filled again. Someone nearby fell asleep and snored quietly. Ryu, at one point, leaned across the table to point out a note Hale had gotten wrong. Not unkindly, just precisely, and his face was very close and Hale felt the familiar and now welcome warmth of it. Later, walking out into the gold afternoon, Ryu said, "I've been thinking about something." "That's almost everything you do," Hale said. "I've been thinking that I owe you an apology." Hale looked at him.
For what?
"For the beginning. For making the first version of this something transactional." Ryu walked with his hands in his pockets, facing forward. "You deserve to be asked just because I wanted you there. Not because I needed a prop. Ryu, I mean it. I know you do." Hale gently bumped his shoulder. "But I've thought about it too, and here's what I decided. The beginning doesn't own the story. You can start a book with a terrible first sentence and still write something beautiful." Ryu was quiet. "Also," Hale continued, "you did, technically, eventually ask me just because you wanted me there. Every time since the party has been real. Every coffee, every library session, every pigeon photo I sent you. I treasure the pigeon photos, Ryu said, completely seriously. I know you do. That's one of my favorite things about you.
Hale stopped walking. Ryu stopped too, turning to face him.
The street was ordinary. People walked past. A car beeped somewhere distant. I like you, Hale said. Not as a revelation, they both knew this, but as a thing he wanted to say out loud, in full daylight, not under party lights or in a quiet hallway or in a near whisper in a library. I like you clearly and on purpose, not because of money or a list or a party. I like Kim Ryu, who takes his coffee without sugar and still talks about clouds sometimes when he's tired and checks exits when he enters rooms and reaches for my hand like he's asking a question. Ryu stared at him. I like Jaeon Hale, Ryu said slowly, who raises his hand in class now and sends tragic pigeon photos and told me the truth even when it was complicated and held on that first night even when he didn't have to. They stood on the ordinary street and looked at each other. This is the cheesy part, Hyle said. I don't mind cheesy, Ryu said. That surprises me. You surprise me constantly, Ryu said. I've decided I like it. He reached over, visible, careful, deliberate, and tucked a piece of Hale's hair back, which was a new thing, a small, quiet new thing, and Hale went very still in a way that was not discomfort but its exact opposite. Let's go get dinner, Ryu said. Where? Somewhere with tteokbokki. Not too spicy. Obviously, Hale said. They walked. The light was still gold, their shoulders pressed together with every step, steady and warm. There was no list, no agreement, no performance. Just two people on a street, going to dinner, being, without any rehearsal, exactly what they were.